Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It is 5:06. Thanks for listening to this 15th day of July, Tuesday edition of O'Connor and Company. We got 4 hours to hand it off to Chris Plant and a whole lot to catch up on going on in your nation's capital, across the country, and around the world. Coming up at 6:35, Angela Morabito, friend of this program, with the Defense of Freedom Institute, doing a victory lap on the Supreme Court decision yesterday, affirming that the president runs the executive branch, not some podunk district judge. At 7, we'll tell you the details of that in a moment. 7:35, Roma Daravi. I always want to put the V in front of the R there. Sorry about that, Roma. Spokesperson for the Kennedy Center, because Les Mis just closed out its run. Remember how controversial it was? And the actors were going to boycott, and no one was going to see it, and it was going to be, it's sold out. The entire run. Coming up at 8:05, Matt Whitaker, old friend of the program. Then he got sent to Brussels. He is the U.S. ambassador to NATO, and we'll talk to him about the president's decision to authorize weapons for Ukraine, but we're not paying for them. Very interesting, incredible strategic move by Trump. And then at 8:35, friend of this program, Joe Concha. Lots of friends of the program. All 4 of our guests are good friends to the program. Joe Concha will join us because things are going on up there where he lives. He's a New Jersey guy, but that's the same as New York. And Andrew Cuomo announced yesterday, finally, after a month in the wilderness, because he got smacked down by a commie, that he is, in fact, going to stay on the ticket and run. He's in it to win it, he says, Julie Gunlock. Julie Gunlock is also in it to win it. It's good to see you. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
I
know.
Just never ends, which is good. We're glad. We're glad to ride this wave. When it's funny, when Trump won the election, I was elated, obviously, and it was a glorious day, and it was incredible vindication for so many years of turmoil, and I knew that things were going to get better in this country, but part of me was like, oh, here we go. This is just going to be... It's just going to be one of those, but that's good. That's why we're in this business.
Well, it's good for radio.
It is. It's great. It's great for media. It's great for our country, and it keeps us all plugged in. And the mainstream media, corporate media, did not learn any lessons, so people are still repelled by their content, which draws more people to us. And it's just win-win-win all around, and that's good. Mm-hmm. That's good. There's still a debate going on in Congress right now, specifically in the Senate, and really the debate's going on in like 4 or 5 key senators' offices, Republican senators, about the rescission package that would defund NPR and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Now, I think the case has already been made that Elmo needs to be put in a box and set on fire. For some reason, shockingly, for decades, Republicans have gone squishy on this when they've had an opportunity to defund the Corporation for Public Broadcasting because they don't want to be blamed for killing Big Bird. It's just a ridiculous argument anyway. But it's typical that squishy Republicans say, well, I don't want Jake Tapper to say I killed Big Bird, so okay, I'll keep funding this thing that hates me and that uses tax dollars to rewrite American history and to constantly communicate to the American people and my voters that they're loathsome individuals. Yeah, I'll keep paying for that with their tax dollars. It's so despicable on the face of it. But now suddenly, shockingly, the last thread that Corporation for Public Broadcasting seems to be hanging on to is NPR. That they're hesitant to get rid of NPR, Julie, which is... it's like worrying that tax dollars won't go to MSNBC. But honestly, NPR is worse than MSNBC. MSNBC pretends to want balance on the air. NPR doesn't even try. I dare say that in fact, I know for a fact that a couple of Republicans and Trump voters work at MSNBC. I know them personally, not on the air, of course.
Right.
But at NPR, literally 0 employees were registered Republicans, according to that whistleblower.
That's right. And, the obvious thing is also, we pay for this.
Yes.
I pay for this. You pay for this. And there's no balance. And like you say, they don't even try.
And these senators, Susan Collins in Maine and
I know.
you know what? I know it's
All the
Susan
normals.
Collins, one of them, and now I can't name all four of them, so I feel hesitant. It's a senator from Nebraska, senator from South Dakota.
And is it Murkowski?
And, of course, Murkowski in Alaska, so that she can stay good with her base, the media. They're latching onto this thing that is like, well, NPR is the only option for people in remote rural towns to get information about crop reports and weather reports and emergencies. If there's an emergency, what will they do? Well, okay, you want to play that game? Let's play that game. Dan Schneider, our friend over at Media Research Center, of course, they've been fighting this fight against Corporation for Public Broadcasting literally for decades. NPR and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting works hand in hand with Texas Public Radio, the state agency there, and the National Weather Service. And we just had a huge weather emergency in Texas, did we not?
Yes.
We had horrific, generational rainstorms that brought on flash flooding that sadly killed hundreds of people, including children, at the Camp Mystic disaster. It was the perfect example of why NPR is so critical and so necessary. Right now, NPR and Texas Public Radio are lobbying Congress, for like $1.1 billion. And they're asking their listeners to call their senators to vote against the rescission bill. They're throwing all their money at this effort and putting all their focus on getting their listeners to, scream at senators to make sure that they keep funding NPR. Yet while the storm was going on, it took Texas Public Radio, this is according to Dan Schneider and Media Research Center, 19 hours to post anything about the flooding on their social media pages. So while the flooding was going on, if you went to NPR's social media page in Texas, it had, something about, how to properly clean your Birkenstocks after going to the, Antifa rally. They had nothing on its social media pages. This is after the July 3rd alert was posted. They took 19 hours to post anything about the weather problem. It took Texas, when the flood hit at 4 in the morning on July 4th, instead of providing local news, because that's what they tell us. It's like, in an emergency, you go there and you get all the local news. No, the NPR affiliate in Kerrville was airing Morning Edition out of Washington, D.C., the national syndicated show.
It's all a lie.
If you were worried about the flood and you wanted up-to-the-minute information in Kerrville, Texas, during the national emergency, and you turned on NPR, you heard details about the reconciliation bill, and you heard hosts and guests slamming Republicans for passing the abomination and that Trump is a liar. There is no evidence that Texas Public Radio interrupted its regularly scheduled programming to provide any urgent advisories about the flood. So the one thing they tell us that is necessary and why we need to keep funding this garbage is for emergency notifications. And by the way, if you're a U.S. Senator and you think NPR is the, fail-safe for emergency notifications, then convert all those radio stations to nothing but weather 24/7.
That's right.
That would be a lot cheaper.
Yeah, we're fine with that.
You don't need the palatial studios down on K Street.
That's right.
It's all, like you just said, it's
and political
all
analysis.
A lie.
You need no political. Weather's not political. You don't need political analysis.
That's right.
You're right. Turn it into the Weather Channel.
They politicized weather now, too.
Oh, I know.
If you tuned into the Weather Channel lately, it's all climate change.
Yes, I know.
So I'm begging the senators who are making this decision. Listen, just be honest with us, okay? You like NPR because they have you on and it makes you feel intellectual and smart and you're able to, go to the right cocktail parties, okay? Fine. Say it. Just say it. Say you like the content. Say you like the quiz shows about cars and stuff.
Larry, it's so funny because I still get invited to one particular PBS show, news show. It's a TV show. And it's funny. Sometimes, I'll mention that to people and they go, wait, PBS does news shows? Nobody, I don't know anyone who, and, maybe it's a generational thing.
Hold your thought. Wait, you got more to say. I do too. We'll keep talking about this because these senators are lying to you and they're lying to themselves that they're keeping this going for weather service and for emergency notification for people in outlying rural areas. And no one in D.C. is smart enough to know what MRC is. They did the research.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Senator Mike Round, South Dakota, told reporters that he's working to make sure that stations that serve Native Americans in his state receive federal resources. He says it's got to be resolved because this is where, in these rural areas, they get their emergency services, they get their announcements. They're not political in nature. So, again, by the way, so stupid. We're on a commercial radio talk station that is not, funded by the government. We have an emergency broadcast system here. That's still in place. If there's an emergency, our content is preempted, then you get emergency information. There are multiple radio stations across the bands that get that. If that's the case, fine. Set aside radio stations in the rural areas that are dedicated to nothing but weather and emergency services. You're paying 3 people. It's over. Yeah. It's like it's automated. They talk to you like you're stupid. And I'm sorry, you were saying, Julie, as you were flexing that you appear on this PBS news show that nobody watches. Flexing.
No, I don't go on there. But the point is, because I don't want to, because it does nothing. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but it just, nobody watches it, nobody sees it. And again, I don't know anybody who uses PBS or goes to PBS for anything urgent, anything. Right. And again, I'm not talking about just the young generation. My parents would never tune to PBS for any kind of news. And I get it that, for weather reasons, I sit there, TV's on Fox, and if there's any kind of weather that's dangerous, they're interrupted with that screen, that's beeping,
That's right. That's right.
And same thing with like missing children, right? Those alerts come over the television. This is wildly unnecessary. And everybody knows it. And the fact that people are still, and Republicans are still defending this is so despicable in this day and age. And again, we get so angry at Republicans for not even doing the simple stuff, not doing the easy stuff when they get in power. So
guess what term they've coined now? This is from the NPR write-up on this. Listen, I love this. In a recent Senate appropriations hearing about the rescissions package, several GOP senators raised concerns about the impact of the cuts on public radio and television stations in their states and warned that zeroing out federal support would turn many communities into news deserts. News deserts.
Like food deserts.
Like the food deserts. News deserts. These country bumpkins, they didn't know what the heck was going on until 1968 when they formed the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Good God.
They were all uninformed. I guess that makes sense. They voted for Johnson in 1964. All right, now it's all making sense because they lived in a news desert. Without NPR, you're in a news desert.
Just astonishing.
Yeah, and so just stop lying to us. Stop lying to yourselves. Stop lying to all of us. Because none of it is true. More from Schneider here as he did this. I told you, at 4 a.m., they played Morning Edition on the NPR. They didn't interrupt any of their regularly scheduled program. Meanwhile, by the way, while NPR was playing the syndicated D.C.-based Morning Edition that was slamming Republicans and Trump for passing an appropriations bill, or the reconciliation bill, 7 local private radio stations jumped into action, breaking into their own programming to interview the Kerrville Police Department Chief Information Officer. He provided urgent advice to listeners to seek higher ground and provided updates throughout the day. The NPR stations never reached out to him or the Kerrville Police Department for interviews. The 7 private radio stations posted over 70 alerts on their social media pages throughout the day, starting at 7:20 in the morning. It took Texas Public Radio 6 more hours before it posted its first advisory.
Unbelievable.
So what they see they're saving is a lie and is, in fact, being covered by privately owned local radio stations who do serve the community. The vast, vast majority of NPR radio stations across the country just pipe in the drivel from K Street and North Capitol.
That's right.
And so they're lying. NPR is lying. Corporation for Public Broadcasting is lying. Liberals are lying. Democrats are lying. And these senators are lying. They're lying to you. They're lying to themselves. And they got to get right on this. Anybody, any Republican who thinks it's a good idea to take the tax dollars from some actual farmer, some person in a rural area in the middle of this country and take money out of their pocket to pay for their pals over there in the palatial radio studios of NPR, they should be primaried
100%.
And lose their job. They just stop. Just leave the party. Stop calling yourself a Republican.
This is the worst type of Washington at play. What you've
it is,
and
again, great job by MRC Media Research Center. This is exactly why you want MRC there. This is exactly what they do, and they do it better than anyone else. And they have exposed the lie. Perfect timing too, because that vote is this week, 5/23.
Coming up, we'll talk about the latest SCOTUS ruling. I'll sum it up for you. Basically, since the president was elected president, he can be president and do presidential things. We'll talk about it. Keep it here. It's 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36, O'Connor and Company this Tuesday morning. Thanks for tuning in. At 6:35, Angela Marabito will be here to talk about how the president can, well, we're going to talk about it in a moment, how the president can now do what he will at the Department of Education in terms of personnel. 7:35, Roma Daravi, she's spokesperson for the Kennedy Center. 8:05, Matt Whitaker, the ambassador to NATO. Are we going to have to call him Mr. Your Excellency?
I think so.
You know, Matt Whitaker, a frequent guest on this program over the years, nice guy. He's got a little bit of a Sean Spicer edge. There's always sort of this hostility toward me that erupts on the air.
Doesn't it? It burns.
Now that he's an ambassador, though, they have to go to, like, diplomacy and protocol schools. So maybe he'll be nice to me.
Do you think so? I bet they have a whole chapter on being nice to Larry.
In Brussels, we are an afternoon show. I'm sure he listens every day. At 8:35, Joe Concha will be our guest on Andrew Cuomo, announcing that he's in it to win it with one of the most uninspiring internet videos you will have ever seen in your life. He's going against this Kami Mamdani who's doing TikTok dances and, you know, making communism seem like it's as cool as some hot babe in a bikini for the young voters. And here comes Cuomo. Hey guys, we got to get a video on the socials. Let's get a video. I'm Andrew Cuomo. I'm in it to win it. Look at me.
Hello,
Move the
kids.
teleprompter another line. Oh, so bad.
Painful.
Yesterday, the Supreme Court came down with another 6-3 ruling. I guess the real headline is that 3 members of the United States Supreme Court don't recognize that the president runs the executive branch of government.
That's right. There we go.
That's a bit of a problem here. But the decision, I love some of the headlines. Supreme Court allows Trump to move forward. Or one of them said, Supreme Court gives Trump administration permission to da-da-da-da. It's like, they still don't get it. That's not how the Supreme Court operates. The Supreme Court does not give permission to the executive branch. The Supreme Court does not allow this. The Constitution allows the president to manage the executive branch. And if the Constitution says, okay, so statutorily I've got to have this thing and it's supposed to do these things. No, let's figure out how many people we need to get that done, shall we? And the Secretary of Education says, well, Mr. President, I mean, I think we can get it done with 10 people, but we're currently employing 1,000 people. What should we do? And the only appropriate answer is the president says, hold on, you're telling me you can get this done with 10 people? Yes, sir. Well, then fire everybody else. If we don't need them, get rid of them.
And again, you know, it's important when you see these decisions and you see a dissent saying, like, you know, and you see these headlines that say Supreme Court gives permission to the president. You know, electing Democrats, there would have been more Supreme Court, you know, justices that would feel this way. That is their job to give the president permission to do this.
Even worse, that it's their job to deny the president permission to do this.
Right. Better put.
Yesterday, the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, called into Fox News as the story broke. Here she was.
This is a real victory, I think, for the future of American education. And I was so pleased with the Supreme Court's ruling today, and it just really reemphasized the fact that the president, clearly, of the United States is the head of the executive branch, and he's the one that has the ultimate authority over staffing levels, administrative organization, et cetera, and through his appointees, which are the secretaries that head these agencies, he expects those orders to be carried out. And so I'm just incredibly pleased that the authority was reinstated where it should be, which is back with the president and with me in this particular instance as Secretary of Education. This lifts the handcuffs off of what we've been trying to do, which really is to get education back to the states where the president believes it does belong. The best education is that closest to the student.
That's right. And in fact, it's such an outrageous suggestion that the president couldn't do this. It's like, can you imagine a federal court saying, if the Pentagon decided that they wanted to cut the troop levels that we've got because, there's no threat right now, we're in peacetime, we can always, increase our recruitment levels, but for now, we can get the job done to protect this nation with, half as many soldiers and half as many seamen and Marines. And a court says, oh, no, you've got to keep troop levels. I know what your troop levels need to be. I know exactly what they need to be. And again, 3 justices actually think that would be the smart move to make. All right, so this is sweeping, obviously, not just for the Department of Education. It reaffirms the president's role in the executive branch. So what happens now? Well, it pauses. There was a decision to reinstate 1,400 laid-off employees at the Department of Education. That a lower court actually tried to stop those layoffs. Nope. Got to keep them hired. So I suppose those 1,400 people are laid off now. It also sort of reinstates the president's authority to sort of run all of the divisions of the federal government that are under his control, and he can make some other sweeping decisions. And most importantly, I don't know, walk me off the ledge here because I'm feeling optimistic. And I know I can always count on you to be an Eeyore here, Julie. We've got a president who ran on the mandate to get rid of the Department of Education, and now we have a Supreme Court decision that says, until Congress actually legislates that the Department of Education is done, he can at least sort of fire everyone he doesn't think is needed, take the money that had been appropriated to them and distribute it to the states where it belongs. That's what President Trump reaffirmed yesterday. And at the same time, those very states that are getting that money, huge numbers of them over the course of the last 5 years have been moving towards school choice.
Yeah.
Like the school choice movement at the state level has been astronomically rapid and sweeping. So you've got school choice happening in the states. At the same time, they're going to get chunks of money without strings attached from the federal government. Is it me, or are we about to see a renaissance in public education in this country?
Yeah, and the other thing we're about to see is a bunch of, people walking out of the Department of Education with their boxes and people crying and screaming and beating their chests and, crayon signs or signs made of crayon up on the... So, we'll see more of that when these 1,400 laid off employees of the Department of Education leave the building. And they will focus on that and not what you just laid out, which is incredibly positive for parents.
Julie, we're not going to see that. Come on.
You asked me to be an Eeyore.
No, they haven't been coming into work.
That's true.
Come on.
You're right. Those boxes will be empty, but they'll show up. They'll show up. Box.
They'll show up with a box from their house.
Yeah. No, they'll actually they're going to stop by Costco and go to the empty box bin and pick one up, and then
It's 5:44. And Angela Morabito from Defensive Freedom Institute is going to join us 6:35 to flesh this out even further and how education might actually be on a huge uptick now because of this. It's 5:44. Fascinating new development now in the war between Russia and Ukraine and America's involvement, such as it is. As you know, since Russia invaded Ukraine. They've been in a ground war now for coming on 3 years, 3+ years, actually. It's already over 3 years. Within a year of Joe Biden becoming president after the disastrous pullout of Afghanistan, our military seemed weak, our president seemed weak, and Putin took advantage and sent tanks across the border to try to claim as much of Ukraine as he possibly could. The Biden administration, of course, offered the president of Ukraine a ticket out of there and sanctuary and say, give up. And the president of Ukraine said, well, no, actually, I'm going to fight. And he stayed and started fighting. And suddenly, people in this country saw this as a huge opportunity to make money off of armaments and weapons. And, to fight for democracy and freedom in Eastern Europe. And so I'm sure there was a little of both. And it's true. I mean, listen, the people of Ukraine don't want to be Russian, and they want to keep protecting their country. That's great. People in this country were a little concerned that we were paying for everything. And anytime you said, hey, is there going to be a peace here? Can we negotiate something? You would say, how dare you?
How dare you?
You're
obviously
Russian.
on the
You're
Russian
a Russian
payroll.
Puppet. Yes, you're on the payroll of Vladimir Putin. All right. That sort of brings you up to where we are today. And, of course, President Trump said, would it never happen if I were president? I believe that. And he said, and I'll solve this on day one. I assumed that was hyperbole. But I did think that he would get the people involved here, Zelensky and Putin, to the table, and they would come out with some kind of negotiated deal. At the beginning, it looked like Zelensky was blowing that up. He was sort of set aside because of his behavior with the president and the vice president. And Trump has now been engineering. Yeah, in the White House meeting, yeah. But now Trump has grown very frustrated with Russia. He says things like, Putin talks a good game, he's really nice on the phone, and then the next morning he's bombing the hell out of people. And he says we can't have it anymore. He doesn't trust him. So he announced the other day that it looks like we're going to have to keep rearming Ukraine here. And everyone's like, wait, you ran against that. What are you talking about? Well, arming Ukraine is one thing. Who pays for those arms is another. And yesterday he announced an incredible deal that I don't think anybody saw coming. Here's cut 2.
The best equipment, the best missiles, the best of everything. The European nations know that. And we've made a deal today, and I'm going to have Mark speak about it, but we've made a deal today where we are going to be sending them weapons and they're going to be paying for them. The United States will not be having any payment made. We're not buying it, but we will manufacture it and they're going to be paying for it.
They is NATO, and Mark is Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO. You know, he's the guy who referred to Trump.
Is he the daddy guy?
Yeah, he called Trump daddy when he was there last. So everyone in Europe is like, America, you have to keep arming Ukraine. What's going on here? You got to keep arming Ukraine. And Trump said, listen, we'll keep arming Ukraine, but why are we paying for it? Why are we footing the bill? What are you guys going to do? And through NATO, the European nations have agreed to foot the bill. Here's President Trump a little bit more in the Oval Office yesterday talking about this and talking about the trade negotiations that they've been engaged in with Russia.
We are very unhappy, I am, with Russia, but we'll discuss that maybe a different day. But we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs at about 100%. You'd call them secondary tariffs. You know what that means. But today we're going to talk about something else. And as you know, we've spent $350 billion approximately on this war with Russia and Ukraine. And would like to see it end. It wasn't my war. It was Biden's war. It's not my war. I'm trying to get you out of it. And we want to see it end.
He is right about that, although at some point this is going to become his war, and he's cognizant of that. You know, he's been in office 6 months now, and now he's come up with a new formula to continue to arm Ukraine and not have it be America's financial burden. It's becoming his war, and he knows that, and he doesn't want it. And so perhaps this move will and by the 100% tariff, what are we getting from Russia right now anyway?
Right.
I mean, vodka?
Yeah.
Not even that. We make better vodka than the Russians down with Tito's in Texas.
Look, yeah, I think Trump clearly recognizes that a strong Europe is good for Europe, but it's also good for America. And this puts us on a path to that. And Europe has not been strong, has not been healthy, has not been able to defend itself for how many decades, certainly my entire lifetime. And that needs to change.
And all the war hawks who were cheerleading us, arming Ukraine and the, the Lindsey Grahams of the world and the rhetoric that you were hearing from Washington, D.C., as if it was our war that we were fighting. They're playing very fast and loose and pretty cavalier with other people's lives. Why didn't they ever come up with this idea? Why didn't they ever think, well, it's to protect Europe. Okay, then maybe Europe should pay for it.
That's right.
And it took Trump to figure that out, and he got it done. We're going to speak with the U.S. ambassador to NATO, Matt Whitaker, coming up at 8:05. Right now it's 5:53.